So what's up, guys? Welcome everyone. So today, first day, I'm doing my analysis on what's this trade C charts because I'm like flipping and transitioning into futures on for ES and NQ. So I'm going to be doing my analysis as well as execution in the same charts. So that's the reason I'm doing it in the futures chart and not in the CFD charts. So basically, today was we were delivering prices, but the intent and the move was not that good for me. So coming into the daily, so what I wanted to see was so basically in ES and NQ. Simple. So this will be my PDRS marked for the day. It is one hour fair value gap in between London lows, London highs, Asian lows, Asian highs. Asian lows and Asian highs are already taken in ES, but NQ didn't take the Asian highs. So London lows, Asian lows. Then we had the subsequent highs and lows. So basically, what I wanted to see was price take the Asian highs and then come towards the London lows or the 4 hour rejection Asian lows. So this is my scenario one. Okay, London lows, Asian lows. Okay, basically we had this 4 hour and a lot of low resistance liquidity to take, and we had like almost nothing against us at this point. But the fact was we were in a 1 hour fair value gap in ES, so there was a chance that price could like move higher from this, which could also push this higher. So I don't want to take trade at this point at this area. I wanted to see this 1 hour fair value gap fail. And when this 1 hour fair value gap fail, I think it failed kind of right somewhere. Okay, at the till the end we didn't get it see it fail. What we saw was it sweep this and gave this big candle higher. Okay, and then the second candle higher, which closed above the London highs, and we had this 5 minute fair value gap. And at that time, what we were doing in NQ was at the start for me ES was more stronger, but by time going it kind of changed, and then again it came back to being ES being the strongest one. So at this point, at this candle, at my 9:30 candle right here, we closed above in this, but in NQ we were not closing above. It was kind of like an SMT at this point, and price did this big move down here. This fair value gap isn't the best. And look at the 15 minute. We didn't have like any fair value gaps. I do want to trade this, so I can't avoid it this day. Even though like the narratives, the scenarios were kind of nice, where we had this move lower into the London lows as well. And also we saw a reversal to take the London highs. And then we also saw this break about to move higher, but none of that was good good for me to take a trade because I'm only solely focusing on A plus trades. Also, that's the case for ES and NQ, and that's not where the real thing is for today. Let's take a look at EU and GU. EU and GU was okay. I kind of like opposite because EU it was like it didn't have a daily fair gap to push higher. Okay, he was bearish because he didn't even tap the weekly fair value gap above it. There was a weekly fair value gap, and GU universed it, but EU didn't even tap it. So there's some big kind of SMT on the bottom right, on the top right. So like a bearish SMT. That's something I need to keep in mind, but that's not gonna affect the way I'm gonna trade today. But there's something I should keep in mind. And we had this low probability move. I just want to see this get swept. Okay, basically. So there was also another thing that I had in mind. So we had this and this opposing scenarios at the point, and we had this daily family gap, and which could deliver to its context as well in GU. So basically, it was very mixed at the start. So what I wanted to see at the first scenario would be price creating an agreed upon DOL, kind of something like here we had this 4 hour fair value gap that price could go into because it's the closest one. But in this, we had this Asian loss. Okay, so even if you're going to be bullish, you're gonna have to take this Asian lows at that some point. Even if you're going to be bearish, you have to take this 4 or 5 value gap to lower, come lower at some point. That's the agreed upon dual. What actually happened is we saw price take the Asian high. Okay, we saw that happen, but there was no. Let me show you. I'm on the wrong charts. Okay, we had this happen, but there wasn't actually any entry for me because there wasn't any fair value gaps or anything that I could take an entry from. So I didn't take this trade. Then what happened? We saw a really good candle close low. Okay, in this GBP USD, and similarly, you was doing something like this where it formed this 15-minute fair value gap. When I took a trade was when we formed this 15-minute fair value gap. When first candle kind of invested, but the second one respected it. And at this point, we had an SMT as well. Let me show you my shot that I took. Okay, if I take the shot and look at it like separately, that's actually a good shot because I had 15-minute drawn liquidity context. We were not invalidating the 15-minute fair value gap. We kind of closed above that, but we were still respecting. And we had this SMT as well. And we had this push lower. We had this kind of sweep SMT and then push lower. The sweep was first sweep was here, second sweep was kind of like here of this move. Then we pushed lower. Okay, okay, fine. This was an limit entry that I took. 1:1 1:1 was the idea. So basically, this was my entry. So what basically was my down liquidity was my 15-minute context, and my delivery was my 15-minute fair value gap, and then entry was liquidity sweep expansion 5-minute IFT SMT CIST. Okay, so and my risk is sell above the SMT high, TP above the 15-minute context, and RR is 1.24. Okay, so this was not a good trade. This was a bad trade. So honestly, when I'm talking about my setups, I want to only take high quality trades and not take low quality trades. I want to take the A plus of the A plus trades only. So while we were doing this, I honestly didn't want to enter at this 15-minute level gap at first. The moment when I had the idea to enter, when I had thought it would be nice to enter was when we did this move over. This move was really nice. This move was like where I am seeing the intent to push lower. Okay, which is nice. At that time, I definitely came into GU as well. Okay, when I came into GU, what price was actually doing? Okay, we were doing this move right. This move was really clean. Okay, that's what gave me the confidence to take a shot. And at that point, GU was also closing, inversing this 15-minute fair value gap. We see this momentum lower. So what I expect is okay, we could push lower because we are like we just came across this obstacle, but the thing is there is a possibility for the 15-minute to CR also. Honestly, at this point I don't even want to take a trade, should be what I should say, because this 15-minute fair value gap, what actually happened is my trade hit the loss. Okay, let me show you the entry and then the loss. This was the loss. We created an SMT here, then push price lower. What actually happened was my laptop died at this point. Okay, so actually after I put this message at like 8:20, then the next thing is at 8:33, that's when I charged my laptop and opened it, and it was an L. So that's a bad L because it was not the A plus setup. And then I was thinking what should I probably do, because I gathered some confluences that made me think this was a good trade. But what I could have done that would like avoid me from taking this trade? That's the question. That's the question I want to be focusing on to get better, right? So then I thought of this, and I also saw flow states trades tell this as well. Before entering a trade, you should always think about the reasons to not enter it, because we can always find a way to enter a trade. We can always find some reason to enter a trade, but that should not be the way, because at that point we are rushing bad trades, we are taking poor executions. So I should always think of a reason to not enter a trade, and the reason for this is we have this 15 minute being bullish on GU. This is not an high probability day to begin with. This is the first reason. The second fucking reason is this 15-minute fair value gap was found by sweeping the rejection lows. So basically, this 15-minute fair value gap, the whole thing, and when we compare this big move up here, it is not even relevant. This 15-minute fair value gap for the first didn't close strong. Okay, I was just very attracted to the fact that 15-minute fair value gap to context works a lot of time. That I took a bad 15-minute fair value gap at a bad place. And the number two thing is the only time I'm gonna be waiting for a 15-minute fair value gap to context entries today was only buys because we already took the loss that we were targeting as context. I didn't have any ideas like this, like moving lower. Okay, we only had long ideas like that moving higher. So this is a bad trade. Okay, what could have been a better trade was the A plus trade would be at this point where we kind of took the entry here in EU. GU, what it did, we created a 5-minute fair value gap here. Then after that SMT that I told you, this SMT, let me show you that SMT. After this SMT that happened, when this happened in GU, we had this SMT. When we had this SMT in GU, what we had was we had this SMT, we had this 5-minute get inversed, this 5-minute get inversed at this candle, right? We had a 3-minute sharp turn at this point. We had an SMT, okay, and the 15 minutes fair value gap as well. So the highest probability trade would be a short at probably, okay, let me look at this. Okay, we had this inverse and everything. So what I could have done is, okay, let's just keep an and keep something like this and like have like 1.1 and wait for price to hit it, and I would have hit this at this candle right here, and this would have been the better trade. Because why? Because we had an SMP, fresh SMP. I would say this is also 50 minute to CR at this point. You was respecting this. Okay. Honestly, the best thing would be to avoid this kind of trade, which is true. I'm not gonna lie. Avoiding this trade is better, but why this trade was a better idea is because I had this low resistance liquidity to take. The drawn liquidity that 15-minute fair value gap intends to take is nice. Okay, even though my drawn liquidity is the context itself, but the push higher makes sense because we want to take this shit. Okay, and also we were respecting the 50-minute fair value gap at the end. We had this. Then what actually was the main reason is look at this 50-minute fair value gap. The one we saw in ES was like very reject respecting the Asian law, but here when we look at this, the Asian laws where the this fair value gap straight candle closed above Asian law. Why I want to talk about this is because this shows us that this fair value gap is stronger. Okay, and comparing to this EU's weak as fair value gap. So that must be that could be a reason for entering this trade, but this trade wasn't a good trade because the fair value gap was bad, and we didn't have scenarios for after this fair value gap context was taken. At this point, we really had no more scenarios for price to do shorts. Okay, those two were the big reasons, and the Geo was also not. Geo was investing. I'm not gonna blame the fact that Geo was not acting good for it. I will definitely say the main mistake is not looking at Geo, because I looked at Geo and it looked fine. So honestly, the main mistake is not that. The main mistake is this 15-minute fair value gap. When I look at it separately itself, is a bad trade. Bad fair value gap. We were respecting this loss, so it's just better to not take this trade and take this trade. Honestly, this trade was better, right? Look at it. If fair value gap was strong and everything, and so shit. So basically, the thing is that was a bad trade, and the bad trades can also look like a good trade at the start because I could gather a lot of confluences to take a trade. But the honest thing that I should do is find a way to not take the trade. Find a way to not take the trade and skip the trade, because that is the only way we can only focus on A plus setups. Okay, this is not a statistical loss. Okay, so that's something that I have to keep in mind for the future. And from tomorrow onwards, I will make sure to do this. Okay. Ah, thank you.